Greetings YouTube, Remarkable Republican here once again to bring you the truth with a truth-flavored bias. Today I'm reviewing Ad Astra. This is a new movie that just came out and it is about space. So what I'll be doing in this video is first breaking down the plot in its basic forms without spoilers, then I'll be getting into my analysis which will contain spoilers. So it's safe to watch for another minute or so. What I will do is look at the positive and negative morals that are in this movie and then judge the film accordingly as to whether or not it is worth your time. So let's get started with a basic plot summary. Ad Astra is a gothic space movie about Rory McBride, played by Brad Pitt. He is a 40-something-year-old astronaut who has depression and marital issues stemming from unresolved daddy issues. The reason why he has these issues is because his father, H. Clifford McBride, is presumed to be dead, but left the Earth years ago and became NASA's greatest hero. He was on a mission to use sensors to find alien life, and then he got lost, and people have been mourning him and really celebrating his memory for maybe 10 or 15 years at this point. But Roy never had closure with his father, and the cracks are beginning to show despite the fact that he does his best to put on a brave face and pretend that everything is okay. There are then some mysterious plasma bursts which hit the Earth and really mess up a lot of digital communication. Roy almost falls to his death from a space elevator. NASA suspects that the person or thing sending these bursts is the ship and surviving crew of the elder McBride's ship. So Roy is sent on a mission to find his father out somewhere near Neptune. I won't go into what actually happens when he gets there. The movie is worth watching, so if you are interested, you should definitely see it. Ad Astra is a good movie, and it has a lot of positive things in it. However, just like with most films, there are some negative qualities here, and I'd like to go ahead and discuss those to get that out of the way. So there are some things you should know before we talk about the details. First of all, Brad Pitt is the primary actor in this movie, and he is well known for his hard-left politics. He, as the main actor, could force the directors to put in things that are of his political bent. It's also worth noting that this film is made in a very liberal country, France. Ad Astra in French means from the stars, and it should come as no surprise that there's at least a little bit of leftism in a movie out of France. That being said, I think we're actually lucky that there wasn't more. The one thing that I found in this movie to be slightly offensive is the very negative portrayal that they give to most explorers. Explorers, through the character of Roy's father, H. Clifford McBride, are shown in a very negative light, and I think that it's clear, based on the fact that we've had no actual astronauts do things wrong, that they're talking about historical explorers and trying to smear them. H. Clifford McBride, who is played by Tommy Lee Jones, who actually is really good in this movie, by the way, is effectively a symbol for Christopher Columbus, and McBride's obsession with finding aliens and then his crew killing ways closely mirrors Columbus's syphilitic madness and Indian killing. What they don't do is show you other better explorers who are much more humane and much more successful and less syphilitic than Columbus. So this is biased, and that is unfortunate. Also, this movie came out just before Columbus Day, and I just don't think that's a coincidence. So this was clearly intended as an insult to Western culture, at least in this one respect. But once we get beyond this, most of what is here is actually of very good quality. In Ad Astra, the good outweighs the bad, so let's get to the good. The movie accurately captures the dangers of space travel. A lot of people who want to spend a bunch of money on NASA are people who just don't understand how dangerous it is to be in a place that has no air. They are unrealistic about the dangers of space and trying to colonize other planets, and I think this movie is a sobering reality check for them. NASA tried to cover up the older McBride's madness and turned him into a hero. This is an accurate representation of how government agencies behave when money is on the line. If they had reported that he had space madness from going out so far and being away for so long, what would have happened is that people would have been more fearful of deep space travel. By making him out as a hero, what they do is they cover up a major tragedy that occurred on his ship, and they encourage others to continue to give them money and to volunteer for NASA. So that is very much the way that a government would operate. This is also something that a military organization would do if one of their soldiers were to lose it, but they could cover up the event and try to make it out as if the person were a hero. So again, this is pretty gritty in that sense, and it really captures the world we live in a surprisingly accurate manner. The younger McBride grew as a man over the course of this film, and he did so by addressing the outstanding issue in his life, his relationship with his father, something that had never really been taken care of. His father had more or less neglected him for his career, and Roy felt unfulfilled because he never knew where he stood with his dad. And now that his dad became this great hero, that problem became exacerbated even more. Roy is now in midlife, and his marriage has fallen apart, but by settling things with his father, he's then able to find the courage within himself to put his life back together. As for the older McBride, his inability to accept the absence of alien life shows the kind of nihilism that a lack of religion can create. If his religion were not science, if he actually had a firm moral basis that didn't rely upon finding alien life and then learning their philosophy, if he could just accept the wisdom of Earth and the God-given wisdom that we find in the Bible, the older McBride would have had a moral compass, and that would have enabled him to be a much better explorer and someone who would not have slaughtered his own crew and developed space madness. Almost all movies are based on books. Most movies are based on novels, but in the case of Ad Astra, it is clearly based on the philosophy of Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, specifically his 12 Rules for Life. I would say that because of this, the writers of Ad Astra owe Dr. Peterson at least some royalties. If they were decent, I mean. They would at least send him a small check or acknowledge him at some point. The fact that they didn't acknowledge him in the credits is, I think, something of a knock against the people who put this movie together and against Brad Pitt. This is a fictional tale which more or less demonstrates all of Peterson's principles in action. In this sense, Ad Astra is kind of like how Ayn Rand used her novels to talk about her philosophy. So there's a very similar thing going on here, except that the philosopher in question is not the person who put this movie together. And if we really look at Roy McBride's story, this movie centers very heavily around him. It's very psychologically driven. Roy McBride is not a young man, as most of the readers of Peterson are, but he still has a lot of room to grow up, and he really needs to clean his room and get his life together. The key for him is to confront his father and ultimately move beyond his father to become his own father. And that is what Jordan Peterson teaches people to do in his book and in all of his lectures and other works. So effectively, this movie is the fictional version of Jordan Peterson's teachings. My movie ratings are based on a combination of how good the movie is to sit down and watch and how positive its messages are. I award Ad Astra a solid B+. It has a completely original plot that is infused throughout with philosophy. While the movie is slow-paced, it was never boring, the dialogue was good, the settings were gritty and realistic, and the effects, when they happened, were all very solid. I also think that if the people who put together Ad Astra wanted to make it part of a larger cinematic universe, since that's now a thing that most movies are parts of, what they could do is team with Treyarch and make this movie a precursor for the story of Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. This is all about how people out in space go their own way, and if you look at what happened in Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, humans settled on other places and declared their independence. So I feel like this actually would be a precursor for what happens in Infinite Warfare. And I feel like Ad Astra and Treyarch should have a conversation about that. I recommend this movie, and I do so with a lot of encouragement for you, but only if you're a man. And the reason for that is that this movie, because it is based entirely on Jordan Peterson's teachings, is for men. Women can watch it and they might be somewhat entertained, but there's no way they're going to understand what's going on because the movie is not for or about them. So if you're a man, I highly recommend it, and I would recommend going with your guy friends and not dragging your girl out to see it simply because she wouldn't understand it, and then she most likely would not be all that happy with it, and it would be frustrating to you that she doesn't understand that experience. So watch it, but only if you're a man. Ad Astra, solid B+, mostly good.